We have just ended our capacity building workshop on electoral reforms with media professionals and journalists in the country. We had two separate workshops. We had the first one in Accra, where we had some journalists from the southern parts of the country joining. So we have participants from Western region, Central region, Volta region, and OT region, and Eastern as well. The second part of the workshop was in Kumasi in Ashanti region, where we brought together other regions in the northern belt. So we brought participants from northern region, northeast, Savannah, upper west and upper east, and also some participants from western north who are closer to Ashanti region. The idea is to integrate journalists in the electoral reforms project to achieve credible elections, the integrity of the election and the efficiency of our elections. It's important that our journalists are an integral part of the reforms that we seek.
I was very privileged to share with our colleagues about the evolving nature of disinformation across the world now. All around the world, instead of the two-pronged approaches to dealing with disinformation, which originally was fact-checking and media and information literacy, now there is a third element, which is about network neutrality. In other words, addressing questions about network opacity in order to be able to see the algorithmic vulnerabilities that also sustain disinformation. All the coup d'etats we saw in the Sahel were preceded by massive disinformation campaigns. Just recently, the African Center for Strategic Studies released a report that showed that there have been a lot of targeted disinformation campaigns aimed at West Africa. And we're going to see more and more of that. And these things happen especially during elections. We saw it in the Sierra Leonean elections, we saw it in the Nigerian elections. It is therefore important that we prepare in Ghana against the possibility of any such campaign. And that is why this is important.
What stood out really for me was the fact that the conversation shifted from what politicians would say and do to what human rights issues we should focus on during these elections. Are we taking into account PWDs? Are we taking into account women involvement in the elections? And so it's no more about what politicians say, the stories they tell and all that, but what really the citizens want. And so elections are not really all about politicians. It's the fact that it's the citizens who are going to elect the leaders, and so we should focus more attention on them. It's common knowledge that the 2024 general elections is a very crucial election. And so we took into account this when we were selecting the media people we were going to invite for the program. And so we selected media folks from all parts of the country, the northern parts, the middle belts, the southern belts, to represent it here. And so we expect that the training that we've given them, they'll be able to go out there and spread the word.
I've interacted with the participants, and it is obvious that the benefits may be eternal. Taking them through the framework for elections in Ghana has been important because these are the journalists who are going to report on the elections. They certainly must know at least the foundation, the constitutional imperatives as far as organizing elections are concerned, the right to vote, the right to be registered to vote. It was revealing for almost all of them that the Electoral Commission Act actually prohibits and criminalizes conduct that interferes, that inhibits the performance of their functions. When this is done willfully, when people try to snatch ballot boxes, when people try to frustrate election officers, presiding officers, particularly political parties with interest, do these things, these journalists have the opportunity to educate them ahead of the elections and also during the elections to point out to them how a conduct which is a hindrance or which is an interference willfully of the performance of the functions of the Electoral Commission could land them into jail or get them to pay fines, or both.
we'll begin our event by inviting CODEO's National Coordinator, Mr. Albert Ahin, to tell us why we are here and officially welcome us. So with a round of applause, we invite Mr. Albert Ahin.
Good morning, everybody. The co-chair, the press, and all those who are here. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to this function. Today, CODEO is launching the 2024 election. So let us start and see what we can do for the day. Esteemed guests, representatives of CODEO member organizations, and members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Advisory Board and the Secretariat of the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODEO, I warmly welcome you to the launch of CODEO's 2024 election observation activities, supporting the upcoming December 7th, 2024 Ghana elections. Democratic elections remain the fundamental tool of accountability in our young democracy. Ensuring the sanctity of this tool of accountability is a collective responsibility that falls on the shoulders of all of us, from the average Ghanaian to the Electoral Commission, political parties, the media, security agencies, the judiciary, parliament, the executive, faith-based organizations, and civil society organizations, among several others. Since transitioning to multi-party democracy, our collective efforts have yielded significant progress, establishing Ghana as a beacon of hope for regional political stability. However, challenges persist, including mistrust and suspicion among key actors that requires careful handling of and full support of the electoral process. Over the past 24 years, CODEO has played an important role in promoting electoral integrity through various interventions, particularly election observation. As we approach the December polls, CODEO, with the support of partners, is committed to safeguarding electoral credibility in the country. The purpose of our gathering today is to share with you, our stakeholders, and the public, our interventions for successful elections in December. We are delighted that you joined us. Your presence means a lot to us. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the launch of CODEO's 2024 election observation activities. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ahin. CODEO has a very unique structure. And so we'll invite Dr. Asante, who's a director at the CODEO Secretariat, to introduce to us the advisory board and also the General Assembly members. And then Dr. Asante will also do us the honor to introduce our esteemed guests who are here today. So we invite Dr. Kojo Asante to the podium.
Good morning, Excellencies. Good morning, co-chairs, distinguished guests, advisory board members, General Assembly members, all gathered here. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. I'm here, first of all, to do the introduction of our advisory board members, and then also to maybe also go through the list of our General Assembly members. Sometimes people don't realize that the diversity that CODEO has. So I want to use the opportunity to do that. But before I do that, I want to use the opportunity for us to just pay respect to a few members that we lost this year. Some of our regional coordinators that we lost this year. Stella Williams, our constituency supervisor from Greater Accra, Medina. Unada Robert from Northern Region, Saboba. And then Sheila Adumakun Afo, Central Region, Cape Coast South. Often these are the real patriots and Democrats who make sacrifices that continue to keep our democracy growing. And nobody sees the work that they do. So I want us with humility to give them, just a minute silence, if we can rise and give them a minute silence in remembrance of them. Thank you very much. Now, last year, we reconstituted the CODEO board from a 15-member to a 25-member advisory board to make sure that we had a good representation of gender, youth, and also the diversity of organizations on the board. And then also a passing of our long-serving CODEO chair, Justice V.C. R.A.C. Crab, and the retirement of the other co-chair, Professor Greenstreet. So our current co-chairs are Reverend Dr. Fred Debe, and then Mrs. Elizabeth Joyce Villas. Mrs. Joyce Villas is here. Dr. Debe will join us later. And then the other members are Professor Kwesi Prempe, who represents CDD-Ghana. Mr. Frank Beecham of the Ghana Bar Association is here. Mr. Kofi Bentum Kwansen, who is an independent member, a retired security professional. He's headed almost every security agency in Ghana. Madame Susanana Setre, who is the representative of the Trade Union Congress. Ms. Philippa Larson, the Ghana National Association of Teachers. She's not here. Mr. Alexander Bankwale of the Ghana Federation of the Disabled Organizations. Sheikh Aremia Shaibu, who is also an independent, an imam. Mr. Eric Kabono of the National Association of Graduate Teachers. Dr. Cyril Fayose of the Christian Council. Ms. Daphne Lariba Nabila, who is also an independent civil society. Professor Emmanuel Jimabwedi, who is also an independent from civil society. Ms. Joyce Nyame from the Youth Bridge Foundation. Mr. Albert Kwabena Dumfor from the Ghana Journalists Association. Mrs. Hamida Harrison from Abantu for Development. Mr. Edmond Akwe, who is the Civil and Local Government Workers Association, CLOSAC's representative, Dr. Mazuk Abubakar Azindo from the Office of the Chief Imam, and Apostle Emmanuel Tete from the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, Ms. Perpetual Ofori Ampofo from the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, Ms. Gifty Florence Enin, who is an independent and a retired commissioner of police, Professor Techua Menu, who is an independent and from the academia, and Nana Asantua Afejenu, who is an independent from civil society. And so you have 15 organizations, and then 10 independents, and a lot of these independents are individuals who have served CODEO for many years and felt the need to retain them on the board. There are many ambassadors here, and I'm sure as we go along, will be recognized because they will be giving some remarks. I just saw the British High Commissioner just coming in to recognize her. The American ambassador is here, the Netherlands ambassador is also here. Dr. Ibn Chambers, who's been a great supporter of CODEO, not just in Ghana, but across Africa. Dr. Bosman from the EC is here. So I'm sure we'll be hearing from them very soon. And then lastly, also to recognize our General Assembly members. Many of them are here. Please give us a wave, General Assembly members from Amnesty, from Ghana Medical Association, yes, from Pen Plus Bytes. Yes, thank you very much. And then also, hello? All right, good. Also to recognize some of representatives of institutions that we invited that we are pleased responded to our invitation. We have a representative from the Chief of Defense Staff and the Ghana Armed Forces, Squadron Leader Frederick Duga, who is here. Thank you very much. Also representing the Special Prosecutor, Mr. Sami Apia Daku, Director in charge of Strategy, Research and Communication, who is here as well. I see Mr. Neslate from Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Center. Who am I missing? But I'm sure that as we go along, if I'm missing anybody, I will recognize them. My own Ambassador Chega is here, and I haven't seen you in the office for a while because I don't know whether I'm the one who's missing or you are the one missing. But thank you very much, and you are very, very, very welcome. Thank you, Vera. Over to you.
Thank you, Kojo. I think it's only in CS so that we are privileged to be calling people by their first names. At this point, we would like to hear from our elections partners who have been with us over the years and hear some remarks and solidarity message as we launch our program today. And the first on my list is to hear from Ambassador of the United States of America. Ma'am, I'd like to hear from you.
Thanks, Vera. Good morning, everybody. Normally, I think, going through the long protocol list is kind of repetitive, but I kind of wanted to do it today because, as Kojo said, you are all Democrats and patriots. And it really is a pleasure to be amongst you and to celebrate the work that you have been doing, have done over the years, and will do in the very important upcoming election and the period that follows. In the coming weeks, Americans and Ghanaians will vote and choose who will be their leaders for the next 4 years. And in addition to the timing, our election is a month before yours. The parallels between our elections this year are extraordinary. There's a former president running against a standing vice president, and yeah, and a president who will leave office at the end of his term. So there really are a lot of things in common, and a lot of suspense, I think, in both countries about outcomes. There is no greater right or responsibility for citizens in a democracy than the exercise of voting. To protect that right, we must ensure our elections are peaceful, transparent, and credible, and I know that's why you're all gathered here. Governance is much more than elections, but elections are the first and most essential step to real democracy. And we see neighbors in West Africa struggling with democratic backsliding and coups, and it brings home the perils of those things and the fragility of democracy and the fact that we must fight for democracy and to protect democratic institutions. And we see our adversaries attempting to divide and conquer by eroding public trust in our governments and our democratic and electoral institutions. We see extremists exploiting inequalities and injustices, and in some places we see attempts to silence voters or to spread disinformation. But in response to those myriad challenges, we need not less democracy, but more democracy. Not less accountability, but more accountability. Not less, but more support for democratic institutions. There's no shortcut to good governance. Democracy and elections are messy, loud, and sometimes chaotic, but that's how differences of opinion are resolved in a peaceful manner. So we need to debate, to disagree, even argue, but then cast our ballots peacefully in a transparent election process. As Ghana approaches December 7th, I salute its legacy of peaceful elections and transfers of power and tolerance of dissenting voices. And again, that is such an important model for this region, this continent, and beyond. I applaud the calls for peaceful elections that many Ghanaians have already made and urge all political parties to sign the Peace Pact, as has happened for several election cycles running, as the strongest commitment to ensuring voters in Ghana are safe from election-related violence. I hope it will be signed by all parties as soon as possible. And this is my most important message, I'm going to look at the cameras. If the process of democracy is not smooth, seeking redress through constitutional means affords the strongest guarantees of justice, not violence, never violence. This election year, as both our countries prepare for the most important day in the life of a democracy, the United States is proud to support Ghana's electoral process through support to CODEO and other democratic institutions. We focus on providing expertise and technical procedural aspects of elections. For example, domestic observers, CODEO, are a critical means of ensuring transparent elections. So U.S. technical support for CODEO's election observation and parallel vote tabulation, and you'll hear more about parallel vote tabulation in the weeks that follow, because a lot of people don't really understand the important role that parallel vote tabulation can play. Ensures that CODEO can provide a results snapshot throughout the day, and we've also supported long-term observation, not just election day observation, because a lot of what happens to ensure the credibility of elections happens before and in the run-up to elections, and after, not simply on election days. And that allows CODEO and other stakeholders to improve the procedures and initiate reforms where needed. The purpose of U.S. support is to strengthen Ghanaians' institutions, democratic institutions, and the processes, from voter education to registration to consensus building, party building, and conflict prevention. Our support helps to facilitate inter-party dialogue through the National Peace Council, monitor election hotspots through the West African Network for Peace Building, educate voters through the Gender Center for Empowering Development, and the National Commission for Civic Education. It helps to train candidates from marginalized communities and groups, and again, as we are celebrating today, election observation through CODEO. We also work to improve campaign finance regulation through the Ghana Integrity Initiative. And last but not least, we provide training to journalists and sponsor some trips to cover the American election to ensure that Ghana's elections are covered fairly and that Ghanaians have the full information that they need about their election. It is truly our privilege to work with partners like CODEO. And I really mean it when I say that a strong election process simply couldn't happen without your commitment and your hard work. So I salute you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The next is to invite the ambassador of the Kingdom of Netherlands.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you all. Allow me to stand on the already existing protocols, although I agree with Virginia that I need to salute you as fellow Democrats, and I would say vigilantes for democracy. So, excellent. It's my pleasure to be here and to join my fellow Ambassador High Commissioner in the support that we give to CODEO. Not only the financial support, but also the moral and political support. And our physical presence here is a testimony to the support that we give to your organization and the importance we attach to the issue that we are talking about right now, and that is election observation. As ambassadors, we have had quite a few discussions with stakeholders in the election process. Yesterday, we had a meeting with the Vice President, candidate for the MPP. And the day before that, Monday, we had a meeting with the Minister for National Security and the National Security Coordinator about arrangements for security. And before that, we had several meetings also in the EU framework with candidates from the different political parties. And one thing that stands out in all those discussions is that everybody refers to the track record of Ghana in peaceful and transparent elections. I think that is a very important point to note, and Virginia also you noted that point, that Ghana has this strong tradition. But in the Netherlands, we have advertisements for buying shares and obligations and all kind of financial instruments. And one of the obligatory phrases that the advertisers have to add is that results from history are no guarantee for the future. And I think we need to repeat that here as well. So if something was successful in the past, it doesn't mean that in future it will also be successful. I think we need to look at the conditions that made success possible and to make sure that those conditions are in place. And I think, Virginia, I want to repeat 2 points that you made in your speech, which are very important, because they very much link to these conditions for peaceful elections. And one of those things is the Peace Pact, which unfortunately this time round has not been signed by all parties. And I want to repeat your call to all parties to sign that Peace Pact rather today than tomorrow. And the second is the recourse to procedures that are provided for under Ghanaian law in case there are disputes, because disputes need to be settled in a peaceful manner and in an orderly manner, and there are procedures for that within the Ghanaian laws and constitution, and we would call on all parties to take recourse to those procedures and not to let the street rule. So with these 2 points reiterated, let me once again underscore the importance of the role of CODEO. There has always been a mix of international observation and domestic observation, but what you see, the trend right now, is that domestic observation is getting more and more important, and international observation is taking a step back. I think that is a testimony to the quality of the election process in Ghana, and increases the confidence of the international community in the process, the electoral process in Ghana. So that is why we have chosen to work with CODEO to help strengthening the domestic observation process. Because as the election process requires integrity and transparency, observation is one of the elements that can enhance integrity and transparency of the process. We have chosen to work with CODEO to emphasize one point, and that is the role of youth in democracy, in elections, and also the role of youth in election observation. So we provided additional funding so that there is a recruitment of 1,000 youth observers, young observers, and I hope that many of you are represented in the room. And that will allow the youth to participate in this important process. And let us remind that elections are indeed one part of the democratic process, an important part, but that the phase before and after are also quite important. And I think that once the elections are over and the result is clear, there's an important part to be played by the different political parties to achieve consensus on how to move forward with democracy in Ghana. Because one important issue, and that is related to political party financing and campaign financing, is not properly taken care of within Ghana. And I think that was an issue we also discussed with the candidate yesterday, and which we will also discuss with candidate Mahama when we meet him, that important to make proper arrangements for campaign and party financing, because democracy should depend on votes and not on money. So with these few words, let me once again underline that we are very happy to be associated with CODEO. We applaud the preparations that you have been doing. We see the work that is being done, and we stand with you to continue that work up to and after Election Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I will now invite the High Commissioner of United Kingdom, Harriet. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, everybody. Again, I'm going to stand on existing protocols, if I may, and I'm very conscious that I am the third in a row of ambassadors/high commissioners that you've heard from. I'm going to try not to repeat what my colleagues have said, but some points do bear repetition because they're so important. But let me first of all, like my colleagues have done previously, just say how glad I am to be here and how glad I am that the UK is one of those countries that's supporting CODEO's efforts. CODEO has a well-earned reputation as a trusted organisation through a combination of the diversity of organisations, the breadth of CSOs that come together under the CODEO banner, the impartiality and the incorruptibility of its observers across the country when the elections come, the sound training that those observers get, which we're here to celebrate and kick off today, and also the respective methodology that's used by CODEO in common with many countries around the world. But that reputation isn't automatic. It's earned through the conduct of each and every one of those 4,000 observers. Each individual bears their share of the responsibility, not only for CODEO's reputation, but actually also for the credibility of the wider electoral process. So I highly commend all of you who are here, who are about to start this training of so many observers. It's really important work that you're doing, and we applaud you. December the 7th is an opportunity for Ghanaians to celebrate your hard-won freedoms. And that celebration, that commitment needs to be renewed each generation through each election. And as individuals, those representatives, those members of CODEO have a fantastic opportunity to do their bit, working together to help safeguard Ghana's democracy, not through intervening at polling stations, but by diligently noting and reporting what happens, hopefully all of it good. Where there are concerns, where any individual or organisation has concerns, there are clearly established constitutional routes for addressing those concerns. And as my colleagues have done, I fully support their cause for every party, every actor with a role to play in this organisation to follow those constitutional routes. Similarly, I hope that all will play their part in creating an environment that is conducive to credible, transparent, inclusive and peaceful elections, all of which will make your roles as observers that much easier. And yet, if things do go wrong, your role is clear: to report on the situation accurately without fear or favour. Although CSOs and CODEO are importantly independent of the EC, the Electoral Commission, I know that that organisation highly values, highly respects the role that you all at CODEO play. Your independent statements, the neutral observation that you provide, the parallel voter tabulation results that you release, all of those provide objective assessments of the work of the Electoral Commission. And that's why I'm so happy to be here today, to recognise your importance, and why I'm so happy that the UK government, through our Ghana Governance Programme, is funding CODEO's efforts in all parts of the country, men and women, young and old, able-bodied, disabled-bodied. Everyone in this room and across the country will share in that ambition to which you are working to deliver those credible, transparent, inclusive and peaceful elections, which are the foundation of good governance, which are the foundation of the rule of law, which is absolutely necessary for those links between our countries to flourish. But democracy, as we've heard, it's not just about elections, it's a whole process. And I'm glad that we're working with many of the organisations represented before elections, through elections, and importantly between elections, to keep building that quality of governance in the country, supporting the work that those well-respected Ghanaian institutions, Ghanaian CSOs are leading to strengthen their own democracy. My colleagues and I will also be out in the field observing on election day, or election days, if that's what the people determine. We're organising what we call a Diplo Watch. So it's different from what you do. Diplomats out across the country getting just a snapshot of what's happening on the day or on the days. We hope that we'll, through that, be able to support all of your efforts. And we're looking forward to seeing you and your representatives at the polling stations on the day. So to finish, let me thank you again for all your hard work. I was going to say it's just about to start. I think that's not true. It's been ongoing for some time, but it's just about to kick up. I think we're about 50 days out. So there's a lot to do between now and then, and we stand with you every step of the way on that journey. Thank you so much, everyone, for everything you're about to do.
We'll hear from one of our key partners. Dr. Bosman Asari is here. He's the Deputy Chair in charge of Corporate Service. Sir, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm also standing on the existing protocols. I bring you greetings from the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, who would have wished to be here. But as all of you may be aware, this time we have a lot of activities. So she cannot be here, and she has mandated me to come and represent her. Let me start by saying that the Electoral Commission of Ghana is very, very much poised for another successful, peaceful, and inclusive elections in 2024. And we are saying this because we have doubled down on all the measures we took in 2020. Most of the things we did in 2020, which supported us greatly, we have doubled down on them. And we are very much sure that 2024 is going to be another successful general election. In terms of registration, we've been able to register all those who are qualified. And when you look at the data we have now, almost 18.8 million Ghanaians. And when you look at the register, the Ghana's population from the Ghana Statistical Service is about 33-point-something million. So we are doing almost 56% of our population on the voters register, which in West Africa is Cape Verde, which comes very close. But don't forget that Cape Verde's population is less than 600,000. And in Ghana, we are doing over 33 million. So clearly there is something Ghana's Electoral Commission is doing by ensuring that anyone who is qualified is given the opportunity to register and vote. And literally, when you also look at those who qualify to be on the voters register, we've been able to capture over 97% of them. Because the data says almost 19.3 million people will turn 18 in 2024. And we have been able to have almost 18.8 of them on the voters register. As you may be aware, we've also done the nominations. And during the nomination exercise, one of the introductions this year was the reduction of the filing fee for female candidates and persons with disability. The fee itself in 2020 was maintained. You know, 2020, the Commission charged 100,000 Ghana cedis for the presidential and 10,000 Ghana cedis for the parliamentary. In 2024, we didn't increase. But when you look at it in value terms, you realize that the money has reduced significantly. But this time in 2024, female candidates for presidential paid 75,000 and persons with disabilities. At the parliamentary level, they paid 7,500. But the unfortunate thing is that based on what we are hearing, still many women didn't take advantage of that. So we don't know how, after the election, whether we are going to have more female in parliament than we currently have. In terms of the polling stations, this year the Commission is using 40,975 polling stations, out of which 328 of them are for the special voting centers. The special voting will take place on December 2nd. So we are going to use 328 special voting centers for the special voting. For the main elections on December 7th, we are using 40,647 polling stations. And for each polling station, the Commission will deploy 5 officials, a presiding officer, a ballot issuer for the parliamentary, a ballot issuer for the presidential, a names reference officer, and a verification officer. So at each polling station, we are going to have 5 individuals. And there is something new we've also introduced in 2024. For each constituency, we've employed somebody who is going to work as a collation officer. The Commission has noticed that 2 days to the elections, our district officers, returning officers, they don't get to rest. And these are the same people who will be doing the collation on the December 7th. So we've decided that let's employ people with statistics, mathematical background. So for each constituency, we are going to have someone who will support with the collation. And at the regional level too, we are going to have that. And when you look at the structure of the presidential, the current CI 127, allows what we call regional collation. So for the presidential election, after the polling station, all the results from the polling stations will be taken to the constituency collation centers. So from the constituency collation center, then all the results will now go to the regional collation centers. So what the Commission is doing is that we are going to announce presidential results for each region. We will announce presidential results for each region. And the parties are well aware. So at the polling station, the parties will have their agents over there. At the constituency level, the parties will have their agents. And at the regional level, the parties will also have their agents. The Commission took that decision because we want to increase the level of checks and balances in our processes. And in 2020, when we did that, it certainly supported the process. And to conclude, I would like to say that the Commission is very, very much convinced that this year's process will be one of the best. In 2020, when we finished, we had the European Union and other observers giving the Electoral Commission of Ghana 95% for the work that was done. And we had the opportunity to even ask them, why didn't you give us 100%? And they indicated that we thought some of your collation centers were so crowded, the collation centers. So this year, one of the things we've done is to ensure that our collation centers are spacious enough, and to also ensure that only those who are accredited observers, accredited media personnel, and agents will be allowed. And as I said, this is finally, The Commission's word to observers is that, please, the functions of observers are clearly different from monitors. So when you are out there, if there is something which is not clear, at the polling station, our presiding officers are there to be able to respond to anything which you don't understand. At the constituency level, we have a district officer. We also have three returning officers, a returning officer and 2 deputy returning officers. And at the regional level, we have regional director, a deputy, and some of the regions, even in Ashanti region, in Greater Accra, in Eastern region, we have 2 deputy regional directors. And at the national level, the Commission officials will also be available to address any misinformation or any disinformation that will be going on. Thank you very, very much for this opportunity.
At this point, we invite one of our sister organizations, Civic Forum Initiative, CFI, Madam Angela.
Members of the Diplomatic Corps, ladies and gentlemen, I stand on existing protocols. It's a privilege to speak to you today at this important gathering, which signifies a critical step in CODEO's preparation for the election observation activities ahead of the December 2024 elections. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the National Coordinator, Mr. Albert Kofi Ahin. He's done a great job. Yes. Board members and all member organizations of CODEO, and to the CDD for this opportunity to make a few remarks and share some insights about elections-related activities. Election observations is a critical component in assuring transparent, free, fair, credible elections. However, Ghana's experience in managing the cyclical risks associated with presidential and parliamentary elections has over the years led to the reduction of large international observer groups. This has created space for domestic groups to be nurtured, to grow, and to do what we are able to do best by strategically taking responsibility for adequate covering and reporting on the elections. Since its establishment in 2000, CODEO has evolved into the largest domestic election observer network in Ghana, successfully training and deploying thousands of observers for Ghana's elections. CODEO's long-term observation missions, alongside election day monitoring, and the PVT, parallel vote tabulation, have proved to be vital for contributing to the kind of elections we want to see. This unwavering commitment to uphold electoral standards is truly, truly commendable. On December 7th, Ghana will conduct its 9th consecutive presidential and parliamentary elections since returning to democratic governance in 1992. These elections have facilitated largely smooth political transitions, highlighting the nation's democratic progress. However, the evolving dynamics among political parties, the continuing existence of vigilante groups under new names, the misuse of both traditional and social media and other cyber technological means to disseminate misinformation and disinformation. And now I hear there's also malinformation, pose significant threats to the maintenance of stability in the 2024 elections and to ensure a peaceful electoral process. Additionally, recent unrests and political upheavals in neighboring countries highlight the potential for regional spillover effect. These add to the challenges Ghana faces in maintaining its democratic stability, for which vigilance is required from all sectors of our society, from women, men, youth, everyday citizens, and state security agencies, and in particular, CSOs involved in monitoring electoral activities. These are concerns we are to take serious note of to stem potential threats and to avoid violence from any quarters, whether related to the elections or from those who would want to take advantage of any disruptions to undermine the country's peace. As an initiative that aligns with our mission to address election security-related issues, the Civic Forum initiative, which is hosted by IDEG, has consistently partnered with CODEO to bolster the political activity, the political security of our nation. Over the years, CODEO and CFI have collaborated to deploy trained observers at polling stations, ensuring comprehensive coverage and timely reporting of electoral irregularities. For instance, the establishment of the election situation rooms by CFI serve as a vital coordination hub, facilitating real-time data collection and communication with stakeholders, such as the Electoral Commission and security agencies. Additionally, in our commitment to enhance peace and security, CODEO, as well as CFI, have led mediation efforts between political parties and the electoral body. This synergy between our two organizations, or coalition-based organizations, not only bolsters the credibility of the electoral processes, but also fosters a proactive approach to mitigating potential conflicts and promoting peaceful elections. Together, CODEO and CFI exemplify a robust civil society response to safeguarding democracy in Ghana. It also contributes to the quest of our Electoral Commission to deliver peaceful, safe, fair, and credible elections. And why not? If it's 100%, it should be given you. With this upcoming election, it is our firm belief that our joint efforts to empower the electorate to consolidate our peace and democracy will yield a robust environment for civic engagement, ensuring that every voice is heard and counted. This, in turn, will contribute to reinforcing our trust in our democratic institutions. Through the grace of God and the relentless efforts of citizens' coalitions such as CODEO, CFI, and others, we trust that Ghana will win. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We invited the National Election Security Task Force, but as of now, we do not have the representative here yet, so we'll move on. I would like to acknowledge the board chair of CDD-Ghana, Professor Audrey Gajapo. Ma'am, she's... Okay, thank you for coming. And I also acknowledge the board chair of Afrobarometer and also a co-founder of CDD-Ghana, Professor Jima Bwedi is also here. Thank you for coming. And I will acknowledge Jonas Clark, the Deputy Head of Delegation EU. They've been very supportive of our electoral reforms project. Thank you, Jason, for coming. And then Sheikh Harimeyao Shaibu. He was our former, I know, thank you for coming. He's our former co-chair of CODEO. Thank you for coming. And then we have our regional coordinators here. They support the secretariats with all the work we do. Regional coordinators, oh, I'm not getting the energy. You should let them know you are the one. We cannot manage for over 4,000 observers on our own. And so we appreciate the work we do. I know at the appropriate time you'll be acknowledged by our chair, our co-chairs as well. So thank you so much for being here. Okay, so at this point, we'll have to listen to our CODEO co-chair to give us a statement for today on, that's the main statement that we are receiving from CODEO, their plans for us. And so to do that for us is our co-chair, Mrs. Elizabeth Villas. Mrs. Elizabeth Villas, anytime you call this woman, she's available to be there. Thank you so much.
Good Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And standing on existing protocol, I think I'll continue. I can imagine if everyone would come and stand here and go through the protocols, we'll spend more than an hour. So thank you all once again for honoring our invitation. Today marks another significant day in our collective quest for electoral integrity and peace in our dear country, as we officially kick off CODEO's 2024 election support work. Let me begin by first saying a few words about CODEO. The Coalition of Domestic Election Observers is a non-partisan and independent coalition of diverse citizens groups and organizations, including some of the most respected CSOs, labor unions, professional associations, and faith-based organizations in the country, some of which are represented here today. Since the establishment of CODEO in the year 2000, CODEO has committed itself to promoting electoral integrity, ensuring that the democratic values we hold dear are upheld throughout our electoral processes. As evidence of its commitment to promoting credible and peaceful elections in Ghana, it has observed all presidential and parliamentary elections and all district elections since 2000. It has also observed several by-elections and internal party elections. Its election observation work is always accompanied by civic and voter education, election conflict monitoring, mediation, and peace building. And we've had extensive engagement with key electoral stakeholders and advocacy for electoral reforms. The work CODEO has carried over the years has deepened citizens' participation in electoral processes and boosted public confidence in the electoral process. It continues to be a leading voice on electoral issues in Ghana. Beyond the corridors of Ghana, CODEO has joined sub-regional, regional, and international efforts to promote electoral integrity. It was a founding member and currently serves as a member of the Executive Council of the West African Election Observers Network, WION, and a regional network of the largest citizens' election observations group in 11 countries in West Africa. CODEO also, through WION, is a member of the African Election Network of Observers Network. And it's working with like-minded organizations who subscribe to the Declaration of Global Principles for non-partisan election observation and monitoring by citizens' organizations. CODEO and WION envisage a West Africa that is democratic and where governments are held accountable through fair, free, regular, and credible elections. CODEO is also a member of the Global Network of Domestic Election Monitors. Now I would like to turn to CODEO's activities in support of the December 2024 elections. That is the Ghana presidential and parliamentary elections. Consistent with its mission and practice, CODEO has embarked on a comprehensive observation strategy aimed at fostering credible, free, fair, transparent, and peaceful electoral outcomes. Our interventions cover the entire electoral cycle, that is with activities targeting electoral reforms, the pre-elections, election day activities, and post-election phases of the 2024 elections. Since 1992, CODEO has held 8 successive elections, which have been largely peaceful and credible, a feat still uncommon in many countries in the West African region. Ghana's highly competitive multi-party elections have produced 3 electoral turnovers. Over the period, incremental electoral reforms, especially after the 2012 election, have ensured improvements in the overall administration of the electoral process, and that is particularly during the voting process on polling day for both the 2016 and 2020 elections. However, challenges still remain and threaten credible and peaceful elections in 2024. In the 2016 and 2020 elections, the hard work of EC was undone by some challenges, including a chaotic results collation, transmission and announcement process at constituency centers. In some of these cases, which turned violent, lives were lost, making the 2020 general elections the deadliest election in the record of the Fourth Republic. Various observation reports, including these from CODEO and the EU, proposed electoral reforms aimed at further improving the integrity of elections in Ghana. To help address some of these challenges before the 2024 general elections, CDD-Ghana, CODEO, and the Affirmative Action Bill Coalition secured support from the European Union to engage in reform-focused interventions. And since 2023, CODEO has been advocating on 4 key areas of concern. The first is the Electoral Commission of Ghana to establish clear legal administrative procedures for handling irregularities by polling and collation officials during elections. The second is the EC to institute a timely and transparent process for the publication of detailed polling station and collation center results and the EC's website ahead of the declaration of results of presidential elections. The third is the Judicial Service of Ghana to amend the PNDC Law 284 to provide a shorter timeline for adjudicating parliamentary election petitions at the high courts and courts of appeals. And the fourth is an enactment of an affirmative action law that prescribes at least 30% quota for women in governance and decision-making positions. In pursuit of these advocacy objectives, CODEO has been able to engage a range of key electoral stakeholders, such as the Electoral Commission, the Judicial Service, the media, and the wider Ghanaian public on some of these key issues of concern. Now, for the process, Affirmative Action Bill has been passed into law, and this so requires further engagement with the public and the key stakeholders. Again, CODEO has engaged with the Electoral Commission and proposed ways of standardizing the corrections of errors on results sheet. First, to have a separate sheet in a different color from the pink sheet as the correction sheet to be filled when there is a need for correction. The second option is to correct the pink sheet with a different pen and sign against it like it's normal with bank checks when there's an error. CODEO also made proposals regarding the set of collation centers to speed up the process of polling station returns from presiding officers. The EC has already submitted itself publicly to publish polling station results on its website after the declaration of results. And CODEO commends the EC for the commitment and expect that to be done. Now, CODEO also, with the Judicial Service on Elections, led by the chair of the Electoral Reform Monitoring and Advocacy Group, who is Justice Retired Jones Duchi, are about to submit proposal for reducing the timelines for parliamentary adjudication. We are pleased to note that we undertook this endeavor with the collaboration of the colleagues at IDEC and CFI. We also acknowledge the hard work of the National Peace Council. All of this has borne fruits, and we hope the justice and the rules of the committee to put something in place ahead of the election. Now, in May this year, CODEO deployed 195 trained independent and non-partisan observers to selected districts to observe the limited biometric voter registration exercise, which was conducted by the Electoral Commission. CODEO shared these observations on the exercise with the public. And in August, it also observed the exhibition of the voter register in 45 selected constituencies. The observation of both the voter registration and the exhibition of the register enabled CODEO to make fair and comprehensive assessments of the electoral process. Now, on long-term election observers, similarly, beginning this month of October, 100 long-term observers were also trained and deployed to various regions in the country to monitor constituencies level pre-election activities of key election stakeholders, including the Electoral Commission, the National Council for Civic Education, the National Peace Council, security agencies, political parties, traditional and regional leaders, civic society, community-based organizations, and the media. Now we will be sharing our findings from our pre-election observation with you all and the wider public periodically. Now, December 7th remains a crucial day in our nation's political calendar. And as the country goes to the polls, we at CODEO are making the necessary preparation and all that we can to support our country's political processes. Towards this end, we have planned to deploy 4,000 polling stationary observers on election day. That is the 7th of December. These observers will observe the conduct of the polls from the opening to voting, counting, and declaration of results, in all the selected polling stations. Thus, 4,000 observers will assist in gathering information about the conduct of the polls and to help make independent assessments of the processes and outcomes. And as part of our preparation to deploy these observers, we have recruited 31 regional coordinators from across the 16 regions in the country. And they will help manage our election day deployment. These coordinators are going to be taken through the rigorous three-day training aiming at equipping them for the task ahead. After receiving training, they will also be assisting the Secretariat to recruit and train 276 constituency supervisors who will then also assist with the recruitment and training of polling station observers. A significant component of the observation efforts is a parallel vote tabulation, and there will be separate presentation on that later. Now, the PVT serves as a powerful citizens' tool for monitoring the conduct of polling and election day and verifying the official presidential results announced by electoral management bodies. On election day, observers will report on the number of votes counted at polling stations, and CODEO will aggregate the data to estimate election results, acting as a crucial check in the accuracy of the Electoral Commission's officially declared presidential results. Furthermore, PVT enables real-time data transmission via SMS text messaging to a central database, ensuring timely and accurate reporting. This innovative approach strengthens our role as a monitoring body and enhances transparency in the electoral process. Now, since election-related developments will not be ending on December 7th, CODEO will be keeping its eyes on the ground in the days and weeks following the casting of ballots and announcement of results. CODEO will deploy 20 observers to a purposefully sampled set of constituencies to monitor post-election developments. Where necessary, CODEO will be liaising with relevant actors, such as the security agencies, to promote post-election peace. As always, CODEO will be sharing its findings from its post-election observations with our stakeholders. And to wind down our interventions for the election year, CODEO and other collaborators will convene a post-election review workshop to bring together election stakeholders to reflect on the conduct of the 2024 elections with a view to drawing lessons, both positive and negative, to inform future elections and also advance advocacy for needed electoral reforms. CODEO is grateful for the financial support from our esteemed partners, particularly the USAID, which supported CODEO elections and observation activities since 2000. The year's support is through the National Democratic Institute, and we are grateful also. We are grateful to the Embassy of the United Kingdom of Netherlands, who supported us in the post and are still supporting CODEO again. Sorry, who supported us in the past and are still supporting us again. Additionally, we want to thank the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office of the UK government and the European Union for continual support as well. And in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, as we approach this important electoral milestone, let us remember that the health of our democracy relies on each of us. It is a shared responsibility and calls for vigilance, participation, and commitment to the principles of integrity and fairness. CODEO is dedicated to empowering citizens and fostering a culture of accountability where every vote counts and every voice is heard. Today, we can ensure that the December elections reflect the true will of the people of Ghana. And thank you for your attention and for the commitment to a credible and democratic electoral process. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mrs. Villas. We'd like to recognize the co-chair, Reverend Fred Digbe. He was introduced earlier. CODEO mentioned here. Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, Reverend. At this point, we'd like to give you an opportunity to ask CODEO questions. So this question is specifically for CODEO, not to the EC or any of the our guests present here. So we'll open it up for the media and partners. I think we can take about maybe 3 or 4, depending on how you're able to push up your questions. So I think we can open it up. We can see by hand if there are questions you'd like to. We have our co-chairs here, the national coordinator, Dr. CODEO Asante is here, and Joseph Otifrimpong is also here, and they will assist with the questions that any clarification, comments. Okay. Mrs. Villas, it looks like your speech was very clear. There are no questions, so that's a good one. Oh, you're not processing it. I can move on.
Okay, that's our idea.
Okay, so I am Asante Ahmed from National Union of Ghana Students. My question has to do with social media presence. In all your speeches, I didn't hear any of them talk about their social media platforms, how we can read without necessarily Googling about CODEO. So we'll be glad to know your social media platforms and then your frequent updates. And then it will be also nice not to it being in a forum only, social media engagements for people that haven't really heard of CODEO would also get the opportunity to hear of you and then give their opinions about your findings and recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, 1 or 2 more, then we can have. Is there a question? Okay, so who is responding? Danama, so our communications manager is here and will respond to that for us. I'm sure. And then we can have the presentation on the PVT, so we can set it up.
Yes, good morning, everyone. CDD is very particular about our media presence. CDD being the CODEO main office, the CODEO office. So we have, as you are aware, this event is being streamed live. It's being streamed live on platforms. It's being streamed live on YouTube. It's being streamed on Twitter. And we have a presence on TikTok as well. So we are doing well with social media. If you check your accounts, we have updates on today's events. Right?
Okay, thank you, Nanama. At this point, we'll have a presentation of our PVT. Mr. Daniel Amma Ato is our specialist, our data specialist at CODEO. Is giving us the numbers. PVT is a magic, and we need to hear from you the magic you are going to perform in 2020.
Thank you, Vera, and good morning to everyone. I believe most of us already have knowledge about the PVT. So what I'm trying to do here is to take you through quickly some of the key issues and then also show you some of the findings. And then show you some of the findings that have come up as a result of the PVT. So basically, I am looking at what parallel vote tabulation is Then I'm looking also at the PVT versus the traditional observation method that we know, some of the benefits of PVT, and then just a brief on the PVT sampling approach. Then I share CODEO's experiences using PVT, and then CODEO's plan for PVT for 2024 presidential elections. So basically, I see PVT as a powerful citizens tool for observing the conduct of polling on election day and for verifying official results as announced by the election management bodies. PVT utilizes sound statistical principles and appropriate information technologies to transmit time-bound reports on the setup of polling stations, opening of polls, polling processes, close of polls, and vote tally directly from a nationally representative sample of polling stations to an election observation body's central database manned by trained data clerks using SMS text messaging. It's a sound statistical principle because we basically use a sample of polling stations and not all the polling stations in a country, because as the Electoral Commission said this morning, we have about 40,000 and over polling stations. So if you are going to observe in all of these polling stations, logistics alone will make it very difficult for you to do that. And in trying to have a kind of finding that will be very representative across the country, then you have to go back and look at the approach. And in doing that, we always have to use a nationally representative sample of polling stations. And let me also note that even though we are selecting polling stations, in Ghana we select about 1,500 polling stations. But in these polling stations, what we are actually tracking in terms of PVT is the vote tally of the registered voters. So automatically, your 1,500 polling station translates into more than 600,000, 700,000 votes that you are tracking. So that is the result of PVT. It's not the polling station per se that we are interested in, but the votes that are counted within the polling stations. Those are the of information that we use in predicting or projecting the election results. PVT was first used in the Philippines in 1986, and ever since then, most electoral observer groups have been using it in the various countries. In Africa, it has become very popular now. Also, the PVT methodology actually builds on the traditional election observation methods, and therefore it enables election observation bodies to provide the public with a more accurate and detailed information about the conduct of an election. For instance, traditional observation method, people just crisscross, moving from one polling station to another, and whatever information they provide, that information may be sound, but it may not be nationally representative, in the sense that since they are crisscrossing, they are going to polling stations that are close by. It's not founded, the polling station selection is not founded on really scientific principles. Probably you are looking at your logistics, whether the polling station is closer to you, where your institution is, or whether it is far away. It will be difficult for people to access, and then you take a decision where you want to go. But when you use PVT, because it is based on scientific sampling, what you are really doing is that the information you are getting from the various PVT polling stations become nationally representative with some margin of error on it. PVT also recruits, train, and deploy accredited rapid response observers. We call them rapid response observers because if we look at the checklist that we use in the election observation, it is time-bound. They have to be reporting on specific aspects of the process. It is time-bound. So whenever you need the information, you are able to get that information quickly. And then also because they are doing that using SMS text messaging, you are able to get it. But you can look back at the traditional approach where somebody must go and meet the observer, collect the hard copy documents. You are sitting in the command center, and for 3 days, the information is not coming. Meanwhile, issues are coming up. You have to address that issue. How do you do that? So now let's look at some of the differences when you look at the traditional observation method and then the PVT. As I said, PVT builds on it, so it's not necessarily like PVT is taking out the traditional method altogether. The first area we can think of is the manner in which the polling stations are selected. I've indicated already the traditional. I have been able to observe elections the traditional way before, and I remember during those times when I joined CDD, we were using fax to send the information, and at times it's very difficult. You call the observer, and the observer will tell you, I am in a place trying to fax the information. The system is not working. Meanwhile, issues are coming up. You want to get the information to address those issues. But because the fax system is not working, it was very difficult. At times, after a week, when the election is done, before people will be trooping into CDD, bringing their documentations and other things. So a challenge. But when you look at PVT, since they are stationed in the polling station, they have access to this test messaging platform. They are able to transmit that information quickly. And so the manner in which the polling station is selected, which is basically the random sampling approach, it helps to ensure that, one, you have observers in virtually all the constituencies, because you are saying you want information that will represent what is happening across the country. And you can't cut out maybe 80 of the 276 constituencies and focus on just the rest. When you do that, then automatically what you are getting is not nationally representative. But the PVT, the way you do the sampling, allows you to do what? Place observers in virtually all the constituencies within the country. I've spoken about the manner of transmitting data on voting processes and observers by the observers. Another aspect of the PVT, which is different from the traditional approach, is where the observers are stationed. With PVT, if an observer is assigned to a polling station, that observer does not move out. From the start of the election to the end, you are fixed in that polling station. But we know the traditional way. I have done the traditional way also before. You move from one station, polling station, you are there, and then you hear something is happening elsewhere. You quickly pack your bag and you are moving there to go and check what is happening. So you have the liberty to roam. You become very mobile. But with PVT, you cannot be mobile. You have to be stationed there because we want information on the process as well as the vote count. And if you move out, then we are going to lose some information. So the way and manner we assign the observers to polling station also is quite different from the traditional approach. The PVT also, we use limited number of observers. Limited number of observers simply because, as I said, you can't cover the entire country. You select a sample of polling stations. But in the traditional approach, you can use so many numbers, and even the numbers will be so much, but you are not getting information from so many locations just because they are crisscrossing, moving. You can get 3 or 4 people moving into the same polling station, working in the same constituency and all that. In terms of the coverage, accuracy, and reliability of information, since PVT is based on scientific sampling principles, whatever you get is reliable and accurate as compared to what you get from the traditional way. Sorry. So what are the benefits of PVT methodology? One, I say it ensures that the election observer groups provide a more accurate information on voting, counting processes on election, and counting processes on election day. It also enables the election observer group to provide scientific estimate of the total vote tally for the presidential elections in order to verify the accuracy of or provide an independent check on the official results. So actually what a PVT is able to do based on the vote tally that we receive, we are able to, let me say, predict what the outcome of the election should be. And so this prediction is based on some margin of error. In that context, when the election management body announces the result, and you can clearly see that the result that has been announced, if you look at what you have estimated based on your margin of error, the range is falling outside the range, then you know there is a problem with the result that has been announced, and that is how PVT is able to help. It helps also to deter fraud. For instance, I believe in most countries where we use the PVT, if the election management bodies are aware of the situation, it becomes like a check on them. If you want to manipulate figures, you know there is somebody sitting independently somewhere who is also cross-checking what you are doing. So it plays the role of a check and balance in the system when it comes to election. And finally, it offers an unbiased systematic information, thereby increasing public confidence in elections and reducing the potential for electoral violence. I remember when we did PVT for the first time in 2008, PVT findings actually saved a lot because of the tension at that time. It did a lot for us. And some of us were even scared. I have to confess, some of us were scared whether we were going to get the right findings or not. So in terms of the sampling, in terms of the sampling, I just want to show 2 slides how we do it. We use stratification approach. So the first stratification is done at the national level, where we look at each region and then the number of polling stations within that region, and then based on their shares, the 1,500 polling stations that we are interested in, we use their shares in the national distribution to allocate the numbers. So when you look at the last column, based on the distribution, the share in the total, and then the allocation, so out of the 1,500, for instance, when you look at Western region, we assign 104 polling stations to Western region. Then the question now is, how do you also share the 104 polling stations across that region? So we move to the second level stratification where we are looking at the number of constituencies within that region. So when you look at the number of constituencies within each constituency also, there are a number of polling stations there. You work out the shares of each constituency in the total for that region, and then we use their shares to share the allocated number of polling stations there. So this is the Central. Central was assigned 131 polling stations. So we use the share of Central region based on the number of constituencies there to share that 131 polling stations. In that situation, we have Commander, Edna, Eguafo, Ibrahim having 8 polling stations. So this is the reason why I said with PVT, you are definitely going to get an observer in each of the constituencies because no constituency ends up getting 0 polling station. If for nothing at all, it will get 1 polling station. And so across the country, all the 275, 276, I'm saying 276 because I can see from the list that they have added the Guam constituencies. So all the 276 constituencies will be having observer groups there. So let me quickly run through some of the findings. The first time we did it in 2008. The first time we did it in 2008. This is the findings that we had. I'm just focusing on the first 2. NPP had 49. This is the presidential elections. The official results for NPP, 49.1. PVT predicted 49.8. When you use the margin of error to create the range, that is 49.8 minus 1.6 to 49.8 plus 1.6, you can clearly see that the official result falls within that range, which means the official result as announced by the Electoral Commission is accurate. When you look at the NDC one, it was 47.9 and PVT predicted 47.4. Not only the election result, but when you look at the voter turnout rate, PVT predicted 70.0, EC predicted 69.5, which is not different from the 70.0. You look at the rejected ballots, PVT 2.2, EC 2.4. And this is the runoff one, where MPP had 49.87, PVT predicted 49.81, and then NDC 50.13, PVT 50.19. Once again, the turnout rate and then the rejected ballots rates from the PVT and the EC official results are quite close. This is for the 2012 presidential election, we see the same trend over there. And then the voter turnout rate, rejected ballots rates are all about the same. And then 2016, similar trend. And I can okay. And 2016, we see a similar trend over here. Once again, when we look at the NDC, the official results, 44.4, and then PVT 44.32. Then NPP 53.85, the PVT 53.75. So once again, all these findings, all these results were within the confidence range. Now, yeah. When you look at this chart, one reason why some of us believe so much in the PVT findings is this consistency checks that we do. When you look at this chart, you will see that is the chart showing the PVT and official results for MPP. And we are looking at it across the regions at that time. So when you look at it from 2000 all the way to, I think, 2017, you can clearly see it's not necessarily whether the figures are about the same, but the pattern that they tend to show. When you look at the pattern, you see the same movement. The PVT ones are there, the official results are also there. And so if PVT is virtually showing you the same path approach in terms of the graph, which you get when you use the official figures, then clearly PVT is predicting something that is very scientific. And so we see this for MPP. And interesting point is, look at when we look at voter region, you can see while the official figures are all dipping, the PVT one also dips in the same way. And we all know this is MPP in voter region. And so it really tells you what is happening. Assuming PVT one has shot up, then you have cause to worry about the findings and the figures you are getting from the observers, because we know the situation on the ground. When you go to NDC figures, you can also see the same voter region. It goes up, but when you come to Ashanti region, NDC figures dips. So when you have this kind of consistency checks using the official figures and then the PVT figures, it clearly confirms the scientific nature of PVT. In terms of the voter turnout, we see the same pattern. And then when you come to the rejected ballots, also we see the same kind of approach. So virtually, this is what PVT is able to do. And so come December 2024, CODEO is once again going to go out there and do PVT. What we are trying to do this time around is to focus on the same 1,500 polling stations, but we are doing selection, and so it will not be the same polling station. And when you go out also, you will see our observers there, because we have additional, apart from the PVT ones, we don't tag them for you to know this is for PVT, this is the ordinary observation, because you don't want anybody to interfere with the work. So all that you will see is CODEO person in T-shirt with the cap and all the other accessories, but you don't know whether that person is PVT. And what we are trying to do is to also station other observers in other polling stations. So you have about 4,000 people who are all stationed in polling stations. You can determine which one is 1,500. And these are some of the checks and balances we also put out there, so that we ensure that politicians cannot go around influencing. If, for instance, you know this is for PVT and you want the prediction to favor you, you can go and cause commotion and drive away the person. So we will not get that information. So we are spreading the observers across 4,000 polling stations, but you will never be able to know who is for PVT. Those of us who will be working at the information center, we will know who is for PVT, but not those who are outside. And then also during the day on 7th December, CODEO will be putting out information, and this information that we'll be putting out at specific time intervals will also be based on the PVT information that we get, because as I said, whatever the observers send are based on specific time period. So in effect, this is what PVT is about. Very, very scientific. And I believe those of you who may be seeing it for the first time in 2024, I want to believe that by the end of 2024 elections, when you see PVT findings, you will become an apostle of PVT. Thank you.
Just a few minutes. If you have any question, clarification, the expert is here. Please don't ask me after the event. Okay.
One important factor is that the results are not announced, but after the EC has announced, so that we need to have to tell them that even though they get the information. Maybe just to add this point on the PVT, normally when the National Center gets the results, in most cases, they're able to predict by the end of the day. But the protocol is that the results are never announced until the EC has officially announced its result. Because as you all know, the EC is the official organ for announcing election results. So even though CODEO will have the information, they will never release the results until after EC has officially announced the results, so that there's no confusion at all about this. It's very, very important.
Thank you, Ambassador, for that clarification. So I think one way or the other, Ambassador is trying to tell us, do not put CODEO under pressure. Because we've been having that kind of experiences where media people and other, they just want to know what is happening. But by the laws of this country, EC must first announce the results. But I also know in some countries, situations where they have similar laws, but when clearly you can see that there is something untoward happening in the background, the organization goes ahead to announce the results just to nip whatever is happening in the back.
Okay, I'm sure the media will approach you after this, so we can have more conversation. I think there's going to be also a PVT outreach, CODEO, so there'll be an opportunity for us to be out there, CODEO, to keep explaining the methodology and the approach as well. So thank you very much, Daniel. Okay, so at this point, we will officially launch our CODEO elections project. And to do that for us, a friend of CODEO, Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chamas, I can call my friend. So, sir, thank you so much for coming to do us the honor.
Thank you very much. And I will also stand on the protocol already established. And, you know, when CODEO asked me to do this, he said, oh, don't worry, just come and say the CODEO program is launched, and then that will be it. So I agreed that I would do that, but I think you also understand that 50 days to elections, I think that's the number we have heard so far. That's roughly about 50 days to elections. This has been a very, very constructive meeting today, consultation, and some key messages have come out from the different presentations, the solidarity messages, which are probably worth just repeating as we bring this session to an end. And for me, let me say that I'm someone who believes in citizen observation of elections.
And I've always advocated for it and encouraged it and campaigned for it, whether I was at ECOWAS, with the UN, or with African Union, and all of these organizations, field observation missions, the EU, many bilaterals, ambassadors here. But let's face it, it is the citizens of the country, ultimately, who should be monitoring and observing and especially declaring whether this process was credible or not. It's about them, because the constitutional right is for the citizens to freely choose their leaders, and every so regularly, the time comes, they go out and they choose, and they ultimately should be determining whether this process meets the standard that they wanted to be at. And I think CODEO and other citizen observer organizations are moving in the right direction. Ultimately, that's where we want things to be. We want that day where, when elections are coming, then we're not looking forward to international organizations and it's a whole big process and hoopla, and no, that it should be a normal exercise where citizens have gone out to exercise a very fundamental democratic right of choosing their leaders. And the other factor also is that if you put together all the foreign, international observers that come, they can only bring so many. The bulk of observation, it's actually when citizens are able to organize, as CODEO is doing, as CFI is doing, that's where the numbers are. You've just told us you have 4,000 observers. If you put all the observers, international coming, they will hardly hit maybe 1,000, I'll be honest with you. Usually ECOWAS will come with a large number, EU, but the rest are modest, moderate numbers. So it is on citizens that we have to rely to get the kind of spread that CODEO provides. Every constituency, and in most of the constituencies, more than 1 or 2 observers. So if we are going to have that national spread, then we need to develop more and more the approaches that CODEO is advancing to bring those numbers on board. Yeah. The aim is to have, as we've been reminded, peaceful, credible elections, participative, inclusive elections, and also we've been reminded that past performance, I wrote it down, is not an assurance of future success. So this is where vigilance is called for. Let's not be complacent. Let us work to improve on our past performance and make every process even better. And in this regard, all stakeholders have their roles to play. We've always said that this is a shared responsibility. So state institutions have their role, but also civil society has its role to play, and we must all approach this with seriousness, mindful of what we've also been told, that our country has a track record. We have a track record that, yes, on our continent, in our sub-region, when they're counting countries that are known for generally peaceful, credible elections, Ghana, we are up there. And we want to keep it up there. Yeah. There was an issue of violence that came up the last time. I think we're all determined to make sure that this time around we'll go back to normal, which is we want to have elections at the end of which no Ghanaian has to lose their life. That's very, very important, and we're happy that CDS has sent a representative to this meeting, and I'm sure the police are also working around the clock to ensure that this time the deployment security will be such that the process will be secured. No one will come and tamper with it and disrupt it. But at the same time, it will be done in a very professional way that voters are not intimidated to stay away, or that in critical phases, there's not an intrusion in this process by overbearing security presence to disrupt it. Going forward, it is clear that the transmission of results, collation of results, is really going to be at the heart of the transparency of this process. And we've heard some very assuring words from the EC. I would like to believe that they will work to improve on past performance to give everybody the confidence that this process will be very, very credible and transparent. Now, the final message here will relate to post-election. There's been some comments here and there, and I don't think we should conclude without referencing them again. One, on campaign financing. So this may go to the issue of, after the elections, this is one thing that Ghanaians really believe whoever comes in must pay attention and give some, and let's start working concretely to deal with this phenomenon of monetization of politics and elections, which erodes from the democratic process. I think that's an issue that was raised. For me, the other issue will be gender. I was at a meeting outside the country. We were discussing this issue, and the finger was being pointed at West African countries that were not doing well as far as gender parity in elections or in governance is concerned. That in our national assemblies, as a matter of fact, I was with former President Goodluck Jonathan, and one of our sisters, Madam Ellen Johnson, was very direct in telling President Jonathan that it's not acceptable that up to now, there's been a single female governor in Nigeria. You see, at which I also had to admit that many of us remain very dissatisfied that our parliament, the numbers of our sisters and our, in there, female representation in our National Assembly, in our parliament in Ghana, is woefully low. And I was told that the number of the next parliament, the number of females in the next parliament may be lower than the current parliament. I mean, if that turns out to be true, then I think it would really be a wake-up call that we need to take this seriously and adopt the kind of affirmative action measures to ensure that why 30%? At least 40% representation of females in our National Assembly would be a step in the right direction. Our comparators in the region are Cape Verde and Senegal. When they talk of justifying performance democratically in West Africa, Ghana is in the category with Cape Verde and Senegal. If you go there, they have 50% parity already, these two countries. So in that regard, we're really lacking, and we need to do something about it. But what brought us here is to go and ensure that we properly observe the 2024 elections, December 7th, and subsequently, if need be. So coming back to that, let me commend CODEO for working to put out as many as 4,000 observers, together with CFI, which I believe will also have large numbers. Hopefully, then we'll be reaching about 6,000 Ghanaian observers, much, much more than any other observers out there. Let us do the right things and follow these procedures, which have been very credible. CODEO's impartiality should be maintained. It has a reputation for that. CODEO's incorruptibility has been referenced. CODEO's reliability, the methodology used, and we've all seen it has been very well explained. So there's a reputation to guard and to maintain, and I'm sure that that will be your objective when you go out there to observe the elections. And on this note, it is my privilege to declare the CODEO 2024 election observation launched.
Thank you. I think this is where we pop the champagne or balloon or something. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. At this point, we are coming to the end of the program. Our co-chair, Reverend Igwe, will acknowledge and thank all of you for coming, and some few announcements after. So just a few minutes, then we are away. So please don't pack your bags yet.
Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to just stand on the few last words of the previous speaker. What has brought all of us here is the desire to work towards a free, transparent, credible election 2024. And that is what CODEO is all about. And this call that has gone out to you to come and see what we are about to do, and through rain and the traffic, you've come from your diplomatic offices, from your press houses, from collaborators, from regions, to people who are ready to go and work. We say thank you for coming. And when you go back, carry the news that we are a democratic nation. We value our input. We will shine our eyes. We will work for peace. We will work at credible elections. And we, as CODEO, promise that once again, with God's help and our participation, all will be well. God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you for coming. Bless you as you go.
So some few announcements. We have coffee and packed snacks, and we'll take